It takes a very, very strong individual to, replay a lot of the experiences that you've had, a lot of anger that you had built up, that where you didn't address the situation and you allowed it to fester, and then it was just combustion. Like, it came out and it just, and then you realize, like, hey, man, I didn't have to deal with that the same way I dealt with that. Apologizing, that was a step for me just to move forward in my life.
Seems like they've made up.
Yeah, I still contend he's going to stay in Boston. I really do. I know everybody's talking New York. I think the media wants him to go to New York, and I get it.
I want him to go to New York.
Sure, I get it.
Listen, Boston, you've got plenty of pieces. You got good stuff going on. Let's get the Knicks back on the map again.
There was 5-6 NBA free agents, one move LeBron. Generally speaking, I think most players are like Giannis and Damian Lillard. They'd prefer not to move, and unless you get the ideal spot, most players are not as aspirational as MJ and LeBron. They're not.
I agree with that. We should never assume that anyway. Everyone has a different personality and desires and is motivated by different things. Everyone wants to win, but at what cost also?
Yeah.
And we have to take into consideration as well that when you move teams, you also move with expectations.
Thank you.
You look at the magnitude that the NBA free agency period has become. If you are a free agent like Kyrie or KD or LeBron or really any of these guys that are in the top 20 free agents, wherever you go, you're going to have an expectation to deliver.
By the way, all these baseball guys that sign these $300 million contracts and $200 million contracts, you ever notice their first year they struggle? Because baseball is such a mental game. It gets into their head. Giancarlo Stanton, A-Rod. If you go look at the big contract guy, that is something that is very Albert Pujols had a really bad beginning. So to your point, once you're the star and get the money and the fame, there's a lot of pressure. Joy with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Lie News.
Well, there's a handful of NBA people that I rely on and that I trust. I use often Chris Broussard and Chris Haynes on this show via the Cowherd Global Satellite Network. Let's go to Sam Amick, The Athletic, senior NBA writer, formerly of the USA Today, a guy I rely on often. And let me start with this. Jackie McMullen, Jackie, is a legendary NBA writer. She's just fantastic and she's ageless. She's been doing this for 40 years. And she said about a month ago, she said, listen, there's tension in Los Angeles. And I talked to Bill Plaschke the other day, and he's like, I'm there every game. I'm not, he is. I mean, Sam, let's talk about that. There is a burden with LeBron. You gotta build to win now. And I sense there's real tension in the Laker building. Do you hear that?
I do. I think Plaschke's right. I think Jackie, the legend, is right. I think the dynamic from top to bottom is just not the healthiest. And part of that is we all know the timeline of Luke Walton getting this job as coach, that Magic didn't hire him, Rob Pelinka didn't hire him. Jeannie has supported him all season long. Constant rumblings that LeBron's camp and specifically agent Rich Paul is not the biggest fan of Luke and that they've kind of kept him at bay. That's part of it. The AD sweepstakes with Anthony Davis being front and center. And as you know, Colin, all these different trade pieces getting leaked to guys like myself in the media where, the human beings in that Lakers locker room have to then reconcile that, hey, one day you think you're part of a young Lakers core. Now, all of a sudden, you're a chip in the AD sweepstakes. So a lot of layers to it. I do, to your question, think that, the unrest is there. And I think that's going to make it challenging for them in these next 5-6 weeks as they try to go get that playoff spot.
Anthony Davis and Clutch Sports were hyper-aggressive in their sort of strategy. And then they got pushed back. They got their hands slapped. And there was a lot of, hey, Anthony Davis is willing to play for anybody now. I don't buy it. I still think it's
all 29.
Yeah, I think it's two. I think it's Boston and I think it's Los Angeles. Gut feeling. Yeah. Do you think he lands with the Lakers?
I don't. I'm going to probably handicap Boston. I think the Celtics have the biggest treasure trove when it comes to New Orleans and whoever is making that call right now. Dan Ferry's in charge of the front office, but I think the Celtics are the ones who, once we get to late June and they can have these discussions and get back in the game, who are going to get the Pelicans' attention. The Celtics thing has been fascinating, though, when it comes to the way that Anthony's camp has handled that component, because as his dad comes out and says a few negative things about the Celtics. AD comes out at All-Star Weekend, says they're on the list. The KD part comes into play here because I think the Kyrie and KD idea in New York is very much in play. And I think that's, if you're Kyrie, you're looking at this, like, you know, if I can get AD to Boston, then maybe I don't go anywhere. But if these guys can't get that job done, then maybe I look at the Big Apple.
You know, it's interesting. Sam Amick joining us, the Athletic, great NBA writer. You know, it's interesting, Sam, is that if Anthony Davis didn't become a Laker, there is a narrative growing, and I believe, Sam, it started last year, that not everybody wants to play with LeBron. You know, you're just a tiny, you know, he's the sun. Everything else is a tiny planet. Paul George chose not to. Kawhi, I'm told by somebody I trust, Kawhi's Raptors or Clippers. If Anthony Davis doesn't land there, it does feel like, Sam, the LeBron running the league days are over. I mean, this stuff all hits, you know, Peyton Manning. You know, it all ends. Right. It's going to end for Brady eventually. If 80 doesn't land in L.A., I kind of feel like it's a tipping point for the league kind of moving off LeBron. Am I hyperventilating here?
You're not. It's crazy to think how quickly that story has become a real thing, but I honestly don't think it's hyperbole. I don't think we're too far out over our skis to look at it that way, because it's not that complicated. To your point, Colin, if AD doesn't go, then let's look at this summer. Kawhi is not pegged as a Lakers, you know, guy. Clippers definitely, if he leaves Toronto. Klay Thompson, by all accounts, going to stay in Golden State. Kyrie, we're talking about New York, other situations. Jimmy Butler is another one. Even if he leaves Philly, I don't necessarily see him going to the Lakers. There are only so many players who qualify, I think, as a worthy co-star for LeBron in Lakerland.
Yeah.
And because Father Time is staring at him the way that he is, I think the timing component is huge, because we've already seen the kind of injury with LeBron this year that is extremely rare for him. Longest time he's been on the shelf for his entire career. That's this brutal reminder for the Lakers that, yes, you're ecstatic that you got this guy, but you did get him in the later stages of his career. I think that's why we saw this push before the trade deadline so aggressively for them to try to get AD, is because they know they got to do something right now.
Yeah, because the Celtics can't make a move until the season's over. Good point.
Right.
Finally, I know, listen, the NFL, I said yesterday, is meet the press. Regardless of the host, it gets a rating, it lasts forever. The NBA is more of, it's more of a reality show. They're not going away, but it's as popular as a celebrity on the show. Right now, you've got some really likable stars, and it's a fun. But this Kevin Durant to the Knicks thing, here's why I keep pushing back, is that Kevin from Woj on, I've read stories that it does matter to Kevin. He does want to be seen at some point as superior to LeBron, at least on the floor. He won his first title, Sam, and about 10% of the people said he's better than LeBron, but it washed out. He wins last year. About 25% of the people are like, you know, he's better than LeBron, and it washes away. If he wins it this year, you're going to get about half the people that say, LeBron can't make the playoffs. This guy's the finals MVP. And here's my pushback. That's if he wins this year, and I think they will. If he came back and did it a fourth, I think Golden State, based on, you know, can the egos maintain? But God, Sam, if he won 4 there, I think there's a lot of people in bars and sports bars around America that they're just going to say Kevin's better than LeBron, and I think it matters to Kevin. I don't see him leaving Golden State soon. Do you?
And right now, I do. And honestly, everything you said makes a ton of sense. I think the one part that you glossed over a little bit, and bear in mind, you know, I'm based pretty close to the Warriors. I'm around them a lot, is that the human component and these guys sharing the same oxygen for so many years now is a major factor. And, you know, does that mean that when, you know, June 30th gets there and he's got to really make up his mind that he doesn't kind of recalibrate and decide that what you're talking about makes a ton of sense, the idea of just stacking up these chips? He could, 100%. The Knicks thing is fascinating, though, because, as you know, there's this kind of unique calculus in sports media and sports fandom where the idea of getting one championship in New York is worth however many somewhere else. And that's where I think in his mind, that prospect of going there, doing something like that, obviously that's a pretty tough mountain to climb, but doing it in that market, in that city, with that friendship he has with Jay-Z, who knows better than anybody kind of what New York can bring you, I think that is what he's looking at. And it's funny because as I was waiting to jump on with you, I heard you breaking down the Russell Wilson story and the idea that back channel conversations, as you know, agent conversations drive a lot of this conversation that we have. And that's the bottom line about Kevin's situation right now, is that his people have gone around the league and talked in pretty, kind of alarming terms about the New York possibility. That's why we're talking about it so much.
Wow. Man, that'd be just crazy. Well, that's why, Sam, I love bringing you on. Go subscribe to The Athletic. Sam Amick, a guy I absolutely trust. And, Sam, it's great talking to you.
Likewise. Thanks, buddy.
You bet. Sam's right. That's where this stuff starts. When I heard about Christian Pulisic at the English Premier League, it was about 2 months out, and I DM'd Mark Madden, who loves soccer. He's a Pittsburgh radio host, and I said, dude, it's happening. I can't talk about it now. I've been sworn to secrecy. The Russell thing, I wasn't sworn to secrecy, just like, he hasn't been sworn to secrecy with Kevin Durant. This stuff all starts with agents.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. So
Well,
you were sworn to secrecy except for telling someone.
He likes soccer.
Oh, so you got to pass for one person who also happens to be in the media and might just tell everybody?
No, I told him. I said, Mark, don't tell anybody. And I don't think he did. I trusted him.
Yeah, famous last words.
Right, but you got told don't tell anybody, and you told someone.
Right.
Everybody
That's
tells.
why you can't tell anybody anything, because everyone's going to tell one person.
I am a vault.
And you know what he did? He texted the first person that is also a big fan and was like, don't tell anybody, but...
Come on. I'm human. You can't give me big nuggets. You can't hang a cheeseburger in front of me. Don't take a bite. Don't take a bite. You give me these things, I'm going to talk about them.
Yeah. Well,
hey,
this is not good. Don't say this.
I may be America's leading sports journalist, and I think that goes without an argument, but I can gossip too. Okay, coming up next, Cowboys Dak, speaking of The Athletic, another story today about the Cowboys and the Dak Prescott. Cowboys are secretly saying this is a massive quandary for us, and I don't think it is. I'm going to give the Cowboys the greatest advice I've ever given a team. Next, The Herd.